You called my name first, so I'll go first. I'm Janet
I
Markley.
think you signed up first. So.
I live at 2104 Northeast Flanders Street in Portland. And I've been back to Portland for 1 year now. And I am so appalled and aghast because I had seen your advertising. It called for a sanctuary, not a place where we can have more elephants. You guys lied, maybe not you in particular, but it was false advertising. Then when the ballot came, everybody had already decided what they were going to do. They wanted the sanctuary for the elephants. And then you come up with this. You should all be ashamed.
Thank you.
Hi there.
Catherine?
My name is Catherine Barshaw, and I live at 5216 Northeast 60th in Portland. So I think I have some supporting documents, which you all have, that might answer some of the questions you just brought up. I have 9 examples which demonstrate that voters were made to believe that by voting in support of the bond, a remote elephant reserve would be built. Example number 1. An Oregon Zoo document from the public record dated spring of 2008, along with other zoo bond projects planned, it lists an offsite elephant center with project costs of $13 million. Example number 2, an article published in the Oregonian on April 30th, 2008, in which the Oregon Zoo director, Tony, discusses the zoo bond and states that the planned offsite reserve would allow the elephants greater range. Example number 3, an article published in the Oregonian on May 9, 2008, titled Metro Council Okays Bond Measure to Overhaul Oregon Zoo. It states 5 acres would be added to the elephant compound, giving them much more room and natural features to explore. Plans also call for buying a much larger off-site preserve for elephants. Example number 4, a document from the public record dated May 29, 2008, entitled New Elephant Exhibit and Off-Site Asian Elephant Facility Meeting. It states that Mike Keel, the former elephant keeper, stated that the purpose of this meeting is to start brainstorming everything that might be needed should construction of an off-site facility and renovation of the on-site facility be approved through the upcoming zoo bond measure. It goes on to list ideas and considerations involving the off-site facility. Example number 5, an article published in the Oregonian dated June 22, 2008, which states, zoo leaders will ask metro area voters this November to approve a bond that would quadruple the size of the elephant exhibit and set aside $12 million for an off-site elephant facility somewhere in the region. Further quoting Vecchio, in an ideal world, Vecchio says, the zoo's primary elephant facility would be off-site, and the elephants would visit their improved 6-acre home on-site. Another article published both in the Oregonian and Portland Tribune quotes Tony Vecchio as declaring that Packy would be living in an off-site reserve by his 50th birthday. Example number 6. An article published in the Oregonian on August 26, 2008, entitled Weighing the Zoo Bond Measure, states in November, the region's voters will decide whether to support a $125 million bond measure that includes $30 million to expand the zoo's cramped elephant quarters. In addition, the money would go towards creation of an off-site elephant reserve, where animals could do more of what they do in the wild. It goes on, we have to find another way to do it.
Go ahead.
Zoo Director Vecchio admitted in June with admirable candor, or we'll need to be thinking about getting out of the elephant business. Example number 7, an article published in the Oregonian on October 16, 2008, entitled Elephants Take Lead in the Zoo Bond Hopes, states another $12 million is potentially earmarked to equip an off-site elephant reserve with a barn, care facilities, and fencing. In Vecchio's vision, most of the elephants would spend time at the reserve, and individuals would be trucked to the zoo for special occasions. Example number 8, an editorial published in the Oregonian on November 4, 2008, entitled Metro Zoo Bond Passes, states about $19 million is earmarked to expand the elephant exhibit at the zoo to 6 acres for 1.5 acres. An additional $12 million is intended to equip an off-site elephant reserve with barn, care facilities, and fencing. And the final example, example number 9, in an editorial published November 15, 2008 in the Oregonian entitled, How Did the Oregon Zoo Do It?, states, during a serious economic downturn, no less, the zoo persuaded voters to upgrade quarters for some decidedly non-native species. hippos, monkeys, polar bears, and Asian elephants. Even more astonishing, about 10% of the 125 million bond measure will likely go towards creating a 100 to 150 acre offsite elephant reserve. So this is just a partial representation of what the paper and other organizations were saying during that time. So I do believe the fact, because I'm a fifth-generation Native Oregonian, fourth-generation Portlander, and I was here during the 2008, and I voted on that because I believed that it was going to have an offsite facility for the elephants. And most of the people that I've talked to also believe that. And they're all kind of shocked that this is being taken off the table. They feel like they've kind of had a little bait and switched on them. And I thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Ken. Doug.
For the record, my name is Doug Steves. Council President, members of the council, I'm here today for myself and as a citizen steward of the elephants to voice my concerns, my opinions relating to the elephants at the zoo and the resolution number 164683. It's my belief that the 7.1 million of the original 12, if it is not going to be used in good faith for the creation of the promised off-site facility, should be used in the spirit of that promise to transport Packy and as many of the other elephants as possible to one of the U.S. sanctuaries, such as Paws. Now, I voted for the bond measure in 2008, but I feel it was a mistake. I thought the AZA and the Oregon Zoo stood for actual conservation and education related to the elephants, and I was wrong. Since you are council members, you've already heard the many issues related to the elephants at the Oregon Zoo, those raised by citizens coming in repeatedly to council meetings to call your attention to them. And while I won't go into detail on that, I think you would agree having an Oregon Zoo baby elephant contractually owned by a company that rents animals for entertainment purposes is an interesting take on the word conservation and the idea of breeding for conservation. Now, see, I hear facts like that and I feel misled by all the words of self-praise from the zoo regarding its world-class status, and the words from the near blindly supportive Oregonian newspaper articles, which frankly read more like advertisements. And then I heard the Metro Council meetings. Now, I heard citizen complaints followed by praise for the zoo, and then I heard citizen evidence of unhealthy practices with the elephants followed by praise for the zoo. This is the forum for people to express their concerns with regards to the zoo to the body of people who have the power to impact what happens, and I genuinely don't think dissenting opinions regarding the zoo and its practices are truly heard. I'm not anti-zoo, I am pro-elephant. I care about their health and well-being as much, if not more, than many of the board members who profess the same. So it's frustrating when there are genuine and valid concerns from the public that demand a detailed response and instead receive empty words to pacify and distract. The people voicing their concerns don't deserve to be marginalized or dismissed, no matter the way they deliver the message. We're all stewards, even if the financial decisions lie with our elected officials. And there is a pressing need for more ethical actions on the part of the zoo and the AZA for the council to not just rubber stamp approvals. We need you, but we also need more visibility and information. Now, the council's informed the public about how the zoo allows for the very best possible care for the elephants. I don't understand the position because I'm not clear from the council on what its input is based on and why the council believes it. What facts? What experts? Which organizations does the council look to? Are they all from the Oregon Zoo or the AZA accredited facilities, or do any of them provide a strong contrary point of view to challenge what people think that they know? What does conservation for elephants mean to the council in practical terms? What are your measurables for success, like with elephant land, and how have you shared that with the public? What are your risk management plans if you don't meet your measurables? The stories of meeting people who love the zoo are nice, but they're not evidence confirming the well-being and care of the elephants. Neither is reference to Lily running around elephant land. Children play even in the most poverty-stricken situations, whether human or baby elephant. Please consider this. Maybe an inability to see how anyone could see it differently is part of the problem here. How do citizens and council get past monologues and engage in viable dialogue? How can anyone who has a contrary yet strong and science fact-based opinion have any chance of changing your minds or influencing your opinion if how you have come to your decisions is not made clear to the public? It makes a citizen wonder what they have to do in order to gather the conscious attention of elected officials. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kimberly Turner, and this is my first time speaking in your presence. I felt compelled to do so because a great injustice has been done to the elephants at the Oregon Zoo and to the community. I personally live in Vancouver, Washington, but I was optimistic that the preserve would be created. Although I was unable to vote for it, I was well aware and I supported it. All of my family and several of my friends call this beautiful city home. When they heard that the preserve was not actually going to take place, they were heartbroken. They felt as though the elephants had been let down. They remember voting on this bond and felt a better future for the elephants was in store. Now they are asking why. They want to know where the money's going, and they feel deceived and they feel lied to. I too wanted to preserve and feel let down. The community that you call home feels let down. It was meant as a place for retirement for the elephants, so they no longer have to be on display simply for the dollar signs on their heads. It's clear that you are proud of the zoo habitat that you've created, but it's not enough. I implore you to educate yourselves on the needs of the elephants, and then you will truly understand just how important the preserve really was. And, excuse me, I'm a little nervous, so forgive me.
You're doing great.
I would also like to respond to a couple things that were said. One of them being, it was mentioned that there was a task force. I am an elephant ambassador for the Tennessee Elephant Sanctuary, and I gave you the newsletter when I came, I believe it was January 14th, and I hope that you all took a look at it. Because to me, if there's going to be a task force put together, it should be people like that who have already put together a successful sanctuary for the elephants. And as far as them being able to roam free, they have 2,700 acres to roam on. So on the days when it's cold, they go into the barn, which is heated by the rainwater, and they are able to go out on the nice days and roam around so that they are staying healthy, that their legs and their feet aren't having problems that they have when they're just standing in stalls or in very small confinement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nancy Shaw.
Good afternoon. My name is Nancy Shaw. I live in Vancouver. This is the testimony of Bala Seshe Seyi from Portland. It's unfortunate that Metro decides to hold its public testimony at a time that's inconvenienced most for the working people who have to sacrifice work if they want to be heard. And yet, we continue to give these testimonies. We have seen this charade a number of times. Any criticism of the zoo by us is met with a blanket statement that you love the elephants, end of story. You refuse to make public the elephants' vet records and demand obscene fees to answer any questions we put forth. Your lack of respect for the public was demonstrated by your staff, Jim Mida, who bullied a reporter on camera for trying to ask a question and faced no consequence for his offensive behavior. You have no respect for anything promised in the zoo bond measure, as demonstrated by the offsite reserve cancellation. And yet, we continue to give these testimonies only for one reason. We want to register our objections as records for the next generation. When they judge us harshly for exploiting intelligent animals for money and cheaply calling it conservation, we want them to know that there were many of us who stood on the right side of history and demanded changing the system, unlike their cynical bureaucrats who profited from suffering. And I just want to say that that elephant land started out as a retirement area, and so now I'm glad it's not going to be built because they're planning on breeding there. That was never the understanding of the public. And talking about the committee that represented all the backslapping and glad handing and all that is ridiculous. I could have been on there. A CEO that builds buildings knows nothing about elephants and what they need. And I always just want to let you know that. And one of the last times I was at the zoo, and I've asked you before when the last time you were there, I asked out of about 60 people, did they go look at the warthogs? And 3 people said yes, and I know one was lying because I said, what side of the zoo are they on? And that is my challenge to you. The next time you go to the zoo, go look at the warthogs.
I had the good fortune to go to South Africa as a volunteer to study wild elephants and work with scientists who were conserving them. So from that experience, I viewed the zoo from a different perspective while I viewed and observed the elephants here. And with the disturbing and troubling kind of conditions that the elephants live in in their restricted environment, I chose to go to a preserve, one of the two highly reputable preserves in the U.S., the Performing Animal Welfare Society. And I brought pictures that I'd like you just to see. I only had one copy, but it's a beautiful preserve. It's the kind of thing that you and the zoo were hoping to create as a solution. And I just want to say that I think we all will fail to truly conserve and protect these elephants if the preserve is abandoned. What I found in nature is that elephants forage on natural substrate, on trees and grasses. They move in herds, very complex social units, and they move 18 to 30 miles a day. The zoo just simply cannot and will not, and it's impossible for them to provide those kinds of conditions for the elephants. And the result is that the elephants suffer and they have disease and they have foot problems. And those foot problems cause premature death, which you're very aware of, because 2 of our elephants died from bone fragility and from serious foot and arthritic disease. So that is one of the harmful things we're encountering in elephants in zoos. But Packy and a majority, if not all of our elephants, are also suffering from severe psychological distress. And what children and sometimes parents think is frivolous and funny when an animal bobs and moves back and forth for hours on end and really with vacant stares into the world around it, you have a severe psychological damage to an animal. So how do you find a solution to this? And what I would propose is that you put this preserve on hold to abandon it and try to find some creative solutions. And I would ask you to consider building it, whether it's now or 10 years from now. And it will provide the space and the natural living area that such a preserve is known for at PAWS, this Performing Animal Welfare Society, and it will have a positive impact on rehabilitation and recovery of our now existing